Okay. Hold on a second. I can't. I can't hear my audio. So hold on just 1 second here. Okay. I'm still not hearing it, but okay. So you you hear me loud and clear. Well, I'm not hearing myself, played back, but that's probably a good thing because sometimes that causes a little bit of feedback, and I would rather not have feedback. But sometimes things go screwy with OBS, and I don't know what it is. Things just decide they're going to change all of a sudden, and you guys can hear the audio, but I can't. So it's just weird. I mean, I don't necessarily have to hear the music to my intro, but it kind of gives me a cue of when to actually go live. If I don't hear the end of that song, I'm just basically waiting for that enjoy the show to go away before I go to the live view. But that's just me. Um, but I'm glad that you're able to hear me and everything. Um, Jay, and I don't know if there's some other people maybe, and when I say lurking, again, I don't mean that in a bad, I don't want a bad connotation to be attached to that. That's just the way I put it. um, but sometimes people don't really want to be in the chat, but they want to watch the live stream. So um, a lot of times when people aren't in the chat, I'm not sure how many people are actively watching unless I switch back to the YouTube page. And sometimes it will kind of give me an accurate count of how many people are indeed watching, and people that have played the video back. They went back to the beginning and actually played that. But anyway, I'll be honest. I'm still sick. I'm not sure if I'm going to have to see the doctor again or not. That remains to be seen. I am off tomorrow from work anyway, for the Juneteenth holiday, which is a new federal holiday. I don't know how many of you out there are going to be off for Juneteenth. Actually, today is Juneteenth, but because it's on a Sunday, we were told that we would be off on Monday at Stockyards Bank and Trust, where I'm currently employed at in their IT department. But I don't think Steve gets off, or he says he doesn't get off, and I would think that they would have already reminded them if they were going to get off. So I'm assuming he's going to have to go into work tomorrow. Um, but what I was getting to is I have been working from home for the past 2 weeks, and I saw a nurse practitioner at the little clinic. And Jay, I'm sorry if this is a repeat for you, because I can't remember who all I've told this to. But anyway, I started running a fever, um, and the week before I started running the fever, I had tested positive for COVID. And so I had to tell my supervisor naturally about that. Um, I don't know, Jay. I haven't heard that they've unholidayed anything to make room for this one, but it's my understanding that it is a federal holiday. But evidently, not all workplaces are recognizing it because, like I said, Steve works in IT for the Ford plant, and perhaps Ford is letting their employees off. But the thing is, Steve doesn't work for Ford. He works for a contractor. Um, uh, so even if they let the Ford employees off for Juneteenth, which they may very well do, um, Steve said that it won't affect him. He'll still have to come to the office and work. He said if they renew the contract next year, then Juneteenth might be added. But right now, he's in a whole different boat as far as being able to get off. Yeah, your health definitely does come first, and I promise, Jay, I am going to get to the topic, the meat of this live stream, so to speak, here shortly, because but I just wanted to explain that I am still feeling sick, but I wanted to do something because I don't have to go into work tomorrow, and it's Father's Day, and I thought, why not? I can surely sit here in front of my computer for a little bit and talk to y'all about movies. Um, if for some reason I do get to feeling sicker or worse, then I may have to stop doing it early. But um, I, I think right now I can get through all the movies that I have set up. But um, yeah, like I said, I naturally had to tell my supervisor that, well, I guess I could have not, but, I care about me, but I also care about my coworkers and supervisors and stuff like that. And I do not want to come into the office and spread that to other people. That would just be wrong. Um, so when I told my supervisor about that, she was like, "Oh yeah, definitely, you can work from home as long as you feel like it, and you can also take off from work if you feel like that you need to rest." Um, but the reason why I didn't go that route um, was because I am still new to stockyards and I have not accrued any sick time or vacation time yet. Come July, I should have some, but if I were to take off now, it would have to be without pay, and I really don't want to do that. And plus, I feel what do you call it? I feel an obligation. My supervisor's not making me feel that way, but I feel an obligation to try to do as much work as humanly possible, even though I'm sick. Because it is a lot easier just to get up out of bed, come back to my desk. I can wear what I want. I don't have to wear necessarily the clothes I would wear to work. I can be here like I am now in my Joe Bob shirt and shorts. And it's comfortable and stuff, and I can close my eyes for a few minutes and whatever. And to be honest, I'm actually getting more tickets done since I've been working from home. I got 27 tickets done. Um, and that was 27 tickets closed. That wasn't 27 tickets just open and some of them staying open. That was 27 tickets that I actually closed, which I was proud of. So, I'm pulling my own weight. It's just, um, I think sometimes people think you're faking illness to get to work from home, and that's not what I'm doing. And I've even felt like um, Steve thinks that I'm faking, and that doesn't make you feel too good. I mean, I I've had enough fevers that I don't have to check my temperature 25 times a day to know that I'm feeling feverish. Um, once or twice a day. And if you're still feeling the same way that you did when you took your temperature and you figured out you were feverish, it's a pretty good chance that you still got the fever. And so anyway, when I went to or went to see the nurse practitioner at Kroger's little clinic, they told me that because I was running a fever, I could not, they didn't say should not, they said I could not go back to the office until I was fever free for 24 hours without fever reducing medication. So, the nurse practitioner gave me a note. I gave that to my supervisor. My supervisor told me that I could work from home as long as I needed. So I'm going to take her up on that. Um, you definitely don't want to go back into the office, expose people to whatever it is that you have, or I think this is probably just leftovers from COVID. I think I probably over COVID, um, but it tends to linger in some people, and I am diabetic, so my immune system's not going to be as good as somebody that's not diabetic, or somebody that doesn't have another pre-existing condition that can cause their immune system to be weaker. Um, well, thank you, Jay. I appreciate you saying that, and I'm sorry that you can actually relate to that, because it's not a good feeling when you already feel badly, and then certain people, especially family members, your loved ones, your spouse, or whatever, um, it when when you feel like they don't believe you, or they actually come right out and say things that hint that they don't believe you, it really hurts. I mean, you're already sick, and you don't need that extra, worry layered on that. Yeah, sometimes it does suck to have a work ethic, Jay. I do agree with you there. But I've talked for about 20 minutes about nothing, basically. So I think I'm going to move on into um, this the topic of the live stream, which, as you can see from the picture behind me, this is going to be a Father's Day special live stream, and you have some movie and TV fathers. You have Jack Nicholson from The Shining. You have, let me see if I can move over here. You have Gomez from the Addams Family. Um, you have, oh goodness, Herman from the Munsters. Let me see if I can move over so you can see that one. And then on the end there, you uh, have Jerry, played by expertly by Terry O'Quinn, in The Stepfather. So anyway, the movie I'm going to start off with tonight is one that I don't think I've talked about in any of my live streams prior to this one. So at least I hope I have not. Because I don't even think that this is a 2002 film, and I don't think I've talked about many movies from the 2000s. Oh my gosh. I mean, it's not funny. It is not, Jay. But it just shows you too how people just don't think sometimes. Even family members don't think. Um, and Jay, I don't know if I've asked you this before. I mean, are are you better from that? I'm not trying to pry. I honestly care about people, and was just wondering if you are were still paralyzed from the waist down, or if you were able to walk now. Well, yeah, I would laugh about it if it was in a movie, because I would know that you know, that wasn't a real person going through a real situation. Um, So, and you know, if you don't want to answer what I just asked, that is fine. If you've answered it before and you want to tell me just to F off, and just stop asking you stuff, that's fine too. But um, I'm going to go ahead and get started with this first movie that stars the late, great Bill Paxton and also stars Matthew McConaughey. Okay, so you can get around a little bit. Well, I you have probably told me this stuff before, Jay, but I tend my brain is not nearly what it once was, and sometimes I forget, and I do apologize if you have told me about this before and I forgot about it. Um, and the movie that I am, and you may have been able to figure out what the movie is, but it's Frailty. Like I said, this was a 2002 movie. It's not a really super long movie. It's a little bit longer than the average horror or suspense film, at 100 minutes. It was also directed by Bill Paxton. I think Bill Paxton was an incredible and versatile actor, and I was really shocked when I heard of his passing. Um, and believe it or not, uh, Ebert and Roper gave it two thumbs way up, one of the year's best films, and I tend to not agree with Siskel and Ebert or Ebert and Roper or just Ebert by himself. But in this case, I do agree with him. I thought Frailty was an excellent film on so many levels. I think Bill Paxton did an excellent job starring in it, and he also did an excellent job behind the camera of like building atmosphere and tension and horror, suspense, all that. I mean, he had everything in this film. Stephen King said it was edge of the seat entertainment. And Stephen Holden of the New York Times said it was the ultimate in cinematic horror. Um, yes, Jay, I do agree with you that Paxton was he had the potential, I think, to go even further than he already had if his untimely passing had not occurred. That's the way I feel. Um, so a little bit about the plot of this, in case there's anybody watching or anybody in the chat right now. It just looks like Jay's in the chat, but I'll just let y'all know a brief plot synopsis of the movie. So, years after terrorizing a small Texas community, the God's Hand killer has returned, leaving in his wake a perplexing trail of fear and death. Convinced that he knows the killer's identity, Fenton Meeks shows up at FBI headquarters, intent on putting an end to the murderous rampage and relieving his conscience of his family's sinister secrets. Now, that plot synopsis, especially after me kind of refreshing my memory, I actually went back and watched this one again, because the others that I'm going to talk about tonight, I've seen many, many times, and it'd been a while since I seen Frailty. So I just wanted to refresh my memory of it. By the way, I also think Matthew McConaughey is great in this. Matthew McConaughey is also to me, a very versatile actor. He can play bad characters, he can play good characters, he can play humorous characters. Um, he's very, I guess, like a chameleon like would be the best way to describe both him and Bill Paxton. Um, there, in my eyes, there's not too many actors out there that can do that and do it well. So when I see actors and actresses that can do that, I really kind of, hey Daniel, I really sort of latch on to those actors and actresses and want to watch more of their stuff. It doesn't mean I latch onto them as in I want to go stalk them. It just means that I really enjoy their work, and I like to watch them on screen because um, they can really bring these characters to life just because they're so skilled at what they do. Um, and I'm sorry I keep having to drink some of my Mountain Dew, but my throat, that's the other thing, that my voice kind of gets scratchy and comes and goes and all that. So, the plot synopsis that I just read to you guys is a little bit of a red herring in a lot of ways. And I would imagine they did that just so they wouldn't give away a lot of the twists and turns in the story. Um, so I'm probably, like I said, I don't. Hey, Darren, I don't know how many of you guys have actually seen Frailty. So I definitely don't want to give away those twists near the end. Um, but I did want to say that I was discussing back when I was doing the Blood Type magazine on a regular basis. Um, I I did interviews with different people, and forgive me, I can't remember which. It was one of my early interviews I did. Um, but I sadly cannot remember which one. It was an actress I know, but they were talking about the horrors of religious mania, which I'm not so sure that that's what this movie was trying to portray. And maybe you're supposed to be confused, because it starts out with a father played by Bill Paxton and his two sons. Um, I'm assuming the wife had died because I, I I didn't recall them really talking about the mother, but there is a picture of a woman on the bedside table between the boys' two beds. And so it may very well have been brought up, but even just refreshing my memory on this, I forget. So it's just the dad and the two boys. And, at first it starts out really normal. I mean, uh, the dad, he works at a garage. He takes his sons to school in the morning, and I believe they walk home in the afternoon. So the school evidently is not far from their house, and they go through this Thurman Rose Garden. And Thurman is the place where they live, and I believe it's supposed to be in Texas. But uh, I don't believe it was filmed in Texas. I believe it was filmed maybe in South Carolina or something, um, or possibly out in California. Um, but I believe it's supposed to be Texas, which it really explains them using Matthew McConaughey, who is from Texas. And so they live in this small town, which I can totally relate to the small town life because I'm from a really, really small town. So, they seem to have a normal upbringing, normal relationship with their dad. And then all of a sudden, one night, the dad wakes the boys up and says, I've had a vision from God. An angel came to me, and now I have a job to do. I have to kill these demons. And so first I have to get three three special tools to help me fight the demons, because the dad's convinced that the demons are going to take over the world if he doesn't destroy them first. So they show the dad driving. It's either to work or going home from work, and the dad sees a light, a shaft of light going into a barn. And when he goes there, the shaft of light is falling on an axe and a pair of gloves. So he takes these. That's his first two special tools. And then there's a metal pipe that he gets. And then he says, I have all my special tools. Um, and now we can start, doing what our job is to do to save the world from these demons. So Adam, his youngest son, um, he tells his dad, yes, I know these look like, Daddy, I know these look like people, but I see that they're demons, and I see what the bad things that they've done, and I know that we've got to destroy them. Now, Fenton, his older son, um, keeps saying, they're people, Dad. We can't kill them. And he's just horrified. You see the horror on his face when his dad uses the axe on the first person that he basically, the first victim, or I don't know whether you would call him a victim, the first woman that's supposed to be a demon, he basically goes to her house, asks if she's the woman that he has on the list, because he said the angel gave him 10 names. These are the first 10 demons he's supposed to destroy. So he asks her if the first name on his list is her. She says yes. He knocks her out with the metal pipe, ties her up and stuff, puts a bag over her head or whatever, and brings her back to his house, and basically axes her and kills her. This movie is rated R, but it moves, and the visuals in it are more, to me, like a PG-13, because you don't see a lot of blood. You don't really see the axes going into these people. You don't see an axe, I don't believe, go into a body until near the end of the film. So it gets more and more seemingly sinister as it goes on. Bill Paxton's character of the father keeps trying to convince Fenton that these are demons, and he's like, no, Dad. And he gets more and more rebellious towards his dad. And at first, his dad seems to be sympathetic towards him. But then he says later on he says the angel came back to him and told him that Fenton was a demon. And this was similar to the way, I don't know how familiar everybody is with the Bible, but in the Bible, one of the early books of the Bible, Abraham, and I never really understood this story, and I don't consider myself extremely religious. I'm just a believer, okay? And so I'm not going to do any Bible thumping. I'm not going to preach to you guys or anything. But there is a story in the Bible, supposedly a man named Abraham and his son Isaac. God asked him to test Abraham's faith in him. He asked him to kill his one and only son. And Abraham's going to do it. And all of a sudden, just as he's about to kill his son, God says, stop. I was just testing your faith in me. I don't really want you to kill your son. So a lot of people have problems with that story in the Bible. And like I said, I don't really understand that. The God I grew up believing in, I know it's in the Bible and everything, but the God that I grew up believing in, I could not imagine that being telling somebody to kill their son just to test somebody's faith. Um, but that's a whole other, that's another story for another day. Um, so, it, the story within Frailty about Bill Paxton and his son in the movie, Fenton, um, is similar to that Bible story. So, Bill Paxton, the character at first, he's like, I don't want to believe what the angel told me. So he thinks that he can force Fenton into believing that these people that his dad is bringing home and killing are demons by making him do really hard labor. I mean, the hard labor has a purpose. He's really planning to build a cellar to bring more of these demons there and destroy them. So he asked him to build or dig a hole that has to be 10 feet deep and like 15 feet wide or something like that. It's a big dang hole. And then they just basically push a shed over it. So let me look at what y'all put here because I don't want to seem like I'm ignoring you guys. Darren, you say you've not seen Frailty in years. Excellent film with a very powerful ending. Yes, I agree. Um, hey, Movie Junkie John, you say you haven't seen The Stepfather in a long time. Oh, John Cressup. Okay, thank you for because I kind of thought it was you, John, but I wasn't sure. Like last night when you were in the Steve's live stream and I was on the tail end of it. Okay, so that that gives me clarity. Um, Jay, you say Dana's asking the hard questions. Yeah, sometimes with films like this, those hard questions come up, unfortunately. But so, instead of like just beating his son, it's almost as if he thinks, well, this hard work will force him to understand what I'm trying to tell him. It will force him to realize that these beings that I'm bringing home are not humans, they're demons. And they've done awful, terrible things. For instance, he brings, they kill, or he kills an old man. It looks like an old man. But he says that this guy killed little children. And, there are times in the film when you think just Bill Paxton's character is just batshit crazy. And then other times, especially towards the end of the movie, when things start coming unraveled, that you're like, well, maybe he wasn't so batshit crazy. And maybe there are really demons, and maybe there are these demons that do these terrible things. Or you've heard about demon possession, and I mean, please guys don't think I'm batshit crazy, but I do believe that people could be possessed, but maybe not by the devil himself, but maybe by other demons. I'm not saying somebody couldn't be possessed by the devil, but I think the devil, as many people believe in the devil, is probably he'd rather sit on his throne ordering the imps or whatever to do whatever dastardly deeds he wanted done. So I do believe that that's possible, and it would surely explain some of the ultimate evil we've seen Not to get into like school shootings and church shootings and what have you, but it would certainly not justify in no way, shape, or form, but it would certainly explain these ultimate evil acts that have happened, especially in the last few years with a lot of these shootings, these mass shootings. Um, because I just don't understand you know, what kind of, and I don't really want to know what kind of person would do these things. And I understand about mental illness and all of that. Um, but I think sometimes there are other more sinister things at work other than just mental illness. Um, I think mental illness is probably a reason for, or a cause, rather, of a lot of uh, crimes. But on the other hand, what about people that just seem to be mean? What about them? I mean, I don't think that you're born evil or born mean. I think something has to happen there. But I'm not going to get too deep into that because, I don't want you guys to think I'm crazy. So, oh gosh, Dana was sitting there talking about a bunch of religious stuff. But, I mean, it does tie in with the movie that I'm talking about. John, you say, yeah, I'm attempting a YouTube channel, LOL, just for fun. Well, yeah, heck yeah. That's why I do these things. It really, it's for fun. It's not like I'm getting paid for it or anything. Um, Darren, you say, I think there's good and bad in everyone. Sometimes the devil in people wins and we get all these horrible acts. And yes, I definitely definitely can see that. I mean, I don't think it's like, sometimes in movies and television shows, they have a little angel and a little devil, and they're both kind of like talking in this person's ears and trying to get them. The angel's trying to get them to do the right thing, the devil's trying to get them to do the bad thing, you know. So I don't believe it's that cutesy. I think there's a real struggle there going on, and in a lot of people, unfortunately. Um, and then sometimes, unfortunately, evil wins out and takes over the person, which, is all I'm trying to say there, really. But so the dad makes Fenton build or dig this big hole, and it's like his dad is oblivious to the fact that if he digs this big hole and his dad expects half of it to be done by the time he gets home from work, it's like he's oblivious to the fact that, yeah, somebody's going to get blisters if they're digging that big of a damn hole. So, his dad tells him that he can come in and eat, and he looks at his son, and his son's having a really hard time with the silverware trying to eat his mashed potatoes and stuff. And his dad says, well, what's wrong with you? Let me see your hands. And so he looks at his son's hands. He sees all these blisters on them. And he actually gets out some, medicine, some pain medicine, I guess like aspirin or something. And he tells him to take that. And at first his son's like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to feed into all this bullshit. That, he doesn't say that, but that's what he's getting at. I'm not going to feed into this like my younger brother does. So I'm not giving in. And then his dad says, yeah, please take this. It'll make the pain ease up. And then tomorrow when you're finishing up, you need to wear some gloves. Of course, the son refuses to wear the gloves. The dad even brings them and throws them in the hole. He still won't use them. But then things get worse. As the boy gets more insistent that he's not going to kill people, the father takes more drastic measures and ends up locking him in the cellar and giving him 1 cup of water a day. I guess he has to use the bathroom down in the cellar. I don't think he's either not giving him any food at all or very little food. And so finally, like after I guess about 2 weeks or something, his younger son, Adam, says, "Dad, Fenton's not answering," and so he opens up the cellar and takes him out, or takes the Fenton out, and puts water on his lips and stuff like that, and then the son says, then Fenton says, "Dad, I saw God." Now you're never really sure if he did temporarily lose his mind and think that he saw God, if he really did see God, or he's just, blowing smoke up his dad's butt, so to speak. So, you're never really sure about that. So, then his dad's like overjoyed, and now his oldest son is ready to kill his first demon or destroy his first demon. So I'm gonna leave it there unless you guys want me to go through the twist at the end. But basically, really, at the beginning of this movie, I will say that it appears that Fenton shows up at the FBI office and wants to talk to the head of the God's Hand killer case, played by Powers Booth. And Powers Booth was really, I think he was made for roles like this. Even though he's an FBI agent and he's should be one of the good guys, there's something sinister about that guy the whole time. Now, like I said, I'm not going to go into complete details about this unless you guys want me to, because like I said, if there's somebody in here or somebody that's just watching, I don't want to give the movie away for them. But if you have never seen this, and even if it's been a while since you've seen it, I highly recommend you go back and watch this. Because I don't know, I don't really know if it's about religious mania or not. And that may be the way the filmmakers wanted to leave it. Maybe they wanted you to make your own interpretations about the movie, which is cool. But I honestly, I have mixed feelings the entire movie. I think one thing and then something happens and then I think another thing. So this type of movie will really get under your skin. And I wouldn't recommend it for people that some of this religious type stuff bothers them, because this would be a movie that would probably carry over into your nighttime, when you're trying to sleep and stuff. So, not that it's just completely just all out terrifying, but the subject matter is very dark, very unsettling. And, some people just don't do well with that particular subject matter. Just like my dad, he used to could watch things like The Exorcist and stuff, but now it gives him the heebie-jeebies if he tries to watch something that has to do with demon possession or anything like that. So, but there are a few special features on this. This is actually a Lionsgate Blu-ray. I don't know for sure if there's, been an additional Blu-ray that came out or possibly a 4K. I haven't looked into that. If you guys know, feel free to share it in the chat. But there's more than one audio commentary. There's an audio commentary with director Bill Paxton and writer Brent Hanley. There's production commentary with Arnold Glassman, David Kirshner, and Brian Tyler. There's a Anatomy of a Scene featurette courtesy of Sundance Channel. The Making of Frailty featurette. Deleted scenes with optional director commentary. Storyboards, a photo gallery. And this does have 7.1 DTS HD Master audio. The 5.1 is only in French. So hopefully you have if you have this Blu-ray or you're thinking about getting this particular Blu-ray, you have the ability to hear the glorious 7.1 sound. But anyway, that is Frailty. And I know I spent a lot of time on that one, but the reason why, and I said this before I started, but I'll say it for those of you that came in a little bit later. The reason why is because I don't think I've talked about Frailty in any of my other live streams. And so I kind of wanted to spend a little more time on that one in case maybe some of you hadn't heard of it or never seen it, or it had been a long time since you had seen it, like it was the case with me, and you might be interested in watching it again. But moving on to the next one I wanted to talk about. Now, this whole entire movie doesn't have a father basis to it, but it's an anthology film, and the first story does have to do actually with Father's Day and cakes and all that. And that is Creepshow. And you actually see the Father's Day cake there. But the first story is, I think, actually called Father's Day. This is a great George Romero, Stephen King collaboration. I have always loved this movie. It came out in 1982. So needless to say, I didn't get to go to the movies and see it. Now, my parents did go see Creepshow 2 at the drive-in. Not long before drive-ins kind of went out of style and they closed a bunch of them. But I don't think they saw the first one. I don't think they saw the original Creepshow at the drive-in. So this story concerns a really rich family. Rich, and like the niece is really spoiled and kind of elitist and selfish and all these things. And Ed Harris plays her boyfriend in an early role for Ed Harris. And I think Ed Harris does a good job with this. But there is one scene where him and his woman are dancing. And they're playing this really loud music. And the aunt makes the niece turn that off. She says to turn it down right now. But while they're dancing, Ed Harris does, like, this would almost be on the level of what Crispin Glover does in Friday the 13th, the final chapter. Only not quite as eager and frantic as Crispin Glover in Friday the 13th, the final chapter. But literally, Ed Harris, you see him do this like that. And it's like, I know my face looks weird, but like, if you have not seen this, you need to see that. And you need to see the Ed Harris scene. Darren, you say, I'm in the minority, but I prefer Creepshow 2 to the original. Still a classic, though, in my opinion. If I think that Creepshow suffers from anything, it's the fact that there might be too many stories in there. I mean, all the stories are good in Creepshow, but maybe they should have only had three, and maybe I don't know. I don't know how they would do it because I wouldn't want to lose out on any of the stories. But I always thought, even though I loved the crate episode, I always thought that one dragged out a little long. Perhaps they maybe could have cut that down a little bit. I mean, I love the creature in it. Um, I love Fluffy. I love, the characters in this. I mean, I love Adrienne Barbeau as the bitchy wife that kind of gets her comeuppance near the end of that story. Um, but there are five stories in this one, and Creepshow 2 only has three stories. And I think the more stories you have, the less clout all of the stories have. Whereas part two only had the three, and every one of those seemed to be a gem, in my opinion. It didn't seem like any of them were slow or anything. Whereas, like I said, the crate episode, even though I loved it in the original Creepshow, it still seemed to drag on a little bit longer than it should have. And I just feel like if they had maybe tightened up some of the scenes where they didn't go on quite so long, that the movie would have fared better as a whole. Anyway, um, let's see. Jay, you say Take Shelter with Michael Shannon is another good father with mental illness movie. I don't believe I've seen that one, Jay. I'll have to check that one out. Um, oh no! Wait a second. I have seen that. I did see that in the last few months. Yeah, I'd totally forgotten about that till I thought about it. Yeah, um, yeah. There's that. That movie is very dark and disturbing as well. John, you say the Creep show has been okay. A bit hit and miss on quality of production. Yeah, I mean, I need to go back, John, actually, and watch some more of the Creep Show series. Um, but I really liked it. It started off with a bang, in my opinion, with the Stephen King story Gray Matter. I thought that was awesome because I have not seen anybody adapt gray matter in any form, even like a short film format. And that was from, I believe, the Night Shift collection. Um, and there were several really good stories in it. And then they hit one, what was it called? The Man in the Suitcase or whatever. And I absolutely hated that one. That one, in my opinion, was the worst episode of that first season. And then the second season, I really liked the episodes that I watched, and I was really, really fond of the Evil Dead themed episode that had Ted Raimi on it. That one I really, really enjoyed, but I need to try to get back into it. Um, Darren, you think the last story with the bugs should have been axed? Um, I always liked that one. But, maybe they could have, like, not included it in Creepshow and maybe put it somewhere else. Maybe do another Stephen King, George Romero collaboration and have it somewhere else. Not necessarily Creepshow 2. But you know what? If they had done their own Creepshow 3 instead of that awful one that came out by those other people, I think it would have been awesome if they had done that. Um, and John, you agree too. Hey, Dirk. Okay, so anyway, back to the Father's Day story in Creepshow. So Vivica Linford, Linford's, Am I pronouncing her name right? I don't want to get it wrong because I really like her. Hold on. I just saw her name. Oh, good Lord. Uh, Vivica Lindfors. Yeah. Aunt Bedelia. She's the other aunt. Um, and she evidently went crazy and killed her father years ago. She killed her father, Nathan Grantham. And it goes back and it tells how her father was always jealous of her. He didn't want her to have anything. He just wanted her to wait on him hand and foot. He was just basically a bad man. He's not a good guy at all. He verbally abuses her and everything, and even goes so far as to have her fiance killed. Um, so, needless to say, she becomes enraged, temporary insanity, whatever, bashes her father in the head with a marble ashtray. A marble ashtray, which, by the way, shows up in all the other stories. So if you haven't picked it out in all the other stories, you might want to go back and see if you can find it. Um, so anyway, she bashes his head in with this marble ashtray. And then years later, of course, the family gets together every year on Father's Day to basically celebrate Aunt Bedelia killing her father off and leaving all the money to the rest of the family members to kind of divvy out. And so, like, Ed Harris is kind of odd man out because he's like the new person in the family. He's the boyfriend or fiance of Cass, the niece. So Aunt Bedelia shows up. She goes to the cemetery like she does every year to talk to her father at his grave. And basically, she tells him what an asshole he was to her and drove her crazy. And as she's talking, a very rotted hand, comes up out of the grave. Um, and then Nathan Grantham's corpse comes out of the grave and kills Aunt Bedelia. Uh, Ed Harris goes out into the cemetery to look for Aunt Bedelia after it gets dark. He's killed by Nathan Grantham. Then Nathan Grantham makes his way to the house where he kills Aunt Sylvia, Aunt Sylvia is the one whose head ends up as his Father's Day cake. And I love the ending of this. They actually, the niece and nephew, go they're headed out of the house to go out in the cemetery and look for Ed Harris's character and look for Aunt Bedelia, who neither one has come back yet. And they find the maid or housekeeper dead. And then Nathan Grantham pushes his way through the doors in the kitchen, and he says, "It's Father's Day, and I finally got my cake." And he has Aunt Sylvia's head as his cake. And then you see the typical comic book thing of Cass and her brother throwing up their hands and like that, and then it goes to the comic book image, and then goes into the next story. But I always have liked that episode. I don't think there are any bad episodes. I'm sorry to disagree with a couple of you guys who said that the roach episode or bug episode, they're creeping up on you, should have been axed. I wouldn't have wanted to see it axed completely, even if it was axed from this. I would have liked to seen it show up somewhere else because I still thought it was entertaining. I just thought the crate episode dragged a little in 2 or 3 spots. So anyway, I went over like the whole Creep Show movie, so I'm not going to go into all the different episodes or different stories in it. But I will tell you about the special features that are on this Screen Factory release. You get a new 4K scan of the original camera negative, supervised and approved by director of photography Michael Gornick. New audio commentary with Michael Gornick, new Terror in the Three Rivers, a roundtable discussion with members of the cast and crew of Creepshow, new The Comic Book Look, an interview with costume designer Barbara Anderson, new The Colors of Creepshow, a look at the restoration of Creepshow with Michael Gornick, audio commentary with director George A. Romero and special makeup effects creator Tom Savini, which, by the way, is a very good commentary. Audio interviews with Michael Gornick, actor John Amplis, property master Bruce Allen Miller, and makeup effects assistant Daryl Farici. Tom Savini's behind-the-scenes footage, Horror's Hallowed Grounds, a look at the original locations today. I always recommend the Horror's Hallowed Grounds with Sean Clark. And also, any behind-the-scenes stuff with Tom Savini is always great. Deleted scenes, theatrical trailer, TV spot, radio spot, still galleries, and more. And that is Creepshow, in particular, the Father's Day episode for this special live stream that I'm doing. Let's see. I missed some of y'all's comments here. Let's see. Try to see. Dirk, you say you like the cockroach gag. I remember when I was a kid, that shit was creepy as hell. John, you say it was always odd putting together Leslie Nielsen as a villain. I was so used to Naked Gun, I was waiting for him to shoot confetti or drip. Yeah, it's kind of odd when you see somebody like Leslie Nielsen, who was more known for their comedic roles, to see them in either a role as a bad character or something like Prom Night, where Leslie Nielsen actually plays a serious character. He's not bad, but he's not all funny and stuff too. Although on the set of Prom Night, they said that Leslie Nielsen would bring this fart noise maker and would go around everybody and just make this thing go off and make these fart noises. So I think in a lot of ways, Leslie Nielsen must have been like a comedian at heart and a big cut up and a big kid at heart too. I've heard that on about more than one movie set he was on. I think even when he was on Creepshow, I think he did that as well. But if you haven't seen him in Prom Night, I highly recommend seeing him in that as well. Derek, you said those were real roaches too, makes it worse, LOL. Yes, and they were not, a lot of them were not regular cockroaches, which you probably noticed. They weren't the regular garden variety cockroaches that we see in the United States. A lot of these were actually Madagascar hissing cockroaches, which I don't know how many of you have actually been around a Madagascar hissing cockroach. But back when I was working for the library in my hometown, we would have summer reading every year, and sometimes I would help whoever the children's librarian was with summer reading. But this particular year, I wasn't really helping with summer reading, but the theme had something to do with bugs, insects. As summer reading always had a theme every year. So for the libraries that wanted it, they could get their own Madagascar hissing cockroach. So we got one. But nobody wanted to take care of the poor guy, as that me. And I got the job of, cleaning out his little enclosure. And when he escaped a couple of times, I was the one that had to hunt him up and put him back in his enclosure. And after summer reading was over, they had a drawing, and one of the kids won the Madagascar hissing cockroach. And so I hope he lived, because he was a unique little guy. He wasn't like, I didn't think he was disgusting like the roaches that, that we see that get in your house, unfortunately, and stuff like that. He was a really cool little guy. And what would happen is if you like took an eraser and kind of, I wouldn't recommend hurting him or anything, but you kind of touched him a little bit, he would go, hence, that's why they're called Madagascar hissing cockroaches. It's kind of sounded like air coming, seeping out of something when he would hiss. So, just a little trivia for you there. Um, Jay, you said the cockroach gag freaked me out as a kid. It holds up. The wife can't watch it. Well, evidently, Tom Savini wasn't too fond of it either. Hey, Texas. Darren, you said the whole comic book idea was genius for the time. Yes, it was just perfect. It worked on uh, so many levels. I don't think, there's so many movies now that are supposedly made from comics or graphic novels, and I don't think that, I personally don't feel like they work like a movie like Creepshow worked. Um, and I can't pinpoint really one thing that makes them not work, but they just don't work for me the way Creepshow worked for me. Let's see. Dirk, you say Leslie Nielsen is a villain in that, and that was before Airplane. LOL. It's still weird seeing him as a villain, though. Yeah, I think because I could be wrong, but in my case at least, I saw Leslie Nielsen in his comedic roles before I saw him in a villain role. And so when you get the reverse, when you watch movies out of order from when they came out, I think that that tends to happen. Um, Texas, I'm sorry I forgot to give you a little reminder. I decided like 4 hours before I was going to do this that I wanted to do it. So I do apologize. Jay, you say you'd be pissed if your kid brought home a pet roach. Well, evidently, I think they had to get consent from the parent prior to the kid even putting their name in the drawing. So I don't know if they had the parents sign something saying if their child won, that they wouldn't have a problem with it or whatever. I don't remember that part of it. Um, oh boy. Okay. Um, so, anyway, we're going to move on. And keep in mind that I was trying to come up with movies that had, they had dads in them, but not all of them, of course, are going to be about Father's Day. Creep Show so far has been the one and only one that had one that actually centered around Father's Day. And I'm sorry, guys, I'm definitely not going to talk about that one movie called Father's Day that came out in what was it, 2011, or was it later than that? Because I just didn't care for that movie. I actually bought it for Steve, but I had no interest in. I think I'd seen parts of it, and I just was not. I was not impressed. Um, so the next one we're going to talk about is Jaws, and some of these I got from lists and videos from YouTube where people were talking about horror movies you could watch on Father's Day. And Jaws was one that came up on more than one list. Um, Mainly because of Sheriff Brody. And isn't this just like, I love this. Y'all probably can't see it very good because of my green screen, but I love this cover. It just looks so 3D. But, but, I'm looking at it now and it's got such depth to it. I almost wish they could do all this is actually the 4K of it. I wish they could do all the 4Ks like this. But anyway, I'm going to quit playing with that. But I think the majority of you know the plot of Jaws. I mean, if you don't, I think the shark kind of gives it away there. But I've said this before, but I'll bring it up because it is Father's Day, and this does have a tie-in with fathers. And that is, Jaws was one of those movies where every time it came on, me and my dad would always sit down and watch it. You know, no matter what we were doing before, we would watch that. So I have a particular fondness. Dirk, I believe it is a lenticular cover. Does anybody else have this actual 4K with the cool cover on it? If not, and you're a fan of Jaws, I would see if I could, find it. Maybe if you couldn't buy it from Amazon or something, see if you could find it. I almost said on YouTube, but find it on eBay or something. Jay, you're wanting a list of my fave Canadian daddies. Well, I'll have to get back to you on that one. I'll have to get back to you on that one. And you don't have to be sorry. I'm just like, I'm so focused on this that the movies that I've got here and me being sick and everything that my brain just won't focus on anything else. Dirk, you don't have that slip. You have a regular one. Yeah, I mean, I could have waited and got the regular one, but I got this as soon as it came out because, like I said, Jaws has been one of my favorite films for years and years and years. I have a particular fondness for it because, not only is it a great film with great characters and stuff in it, but because I watched it so many times and enjoyed it, watching it with my dad, and I was always a daddy's girl. I've said that before too. And so being able to actually sit down and enjoy a few movies with your dad, and you both really enjoy the movie, there's just something about that. I mean, I didn't have that problem with my mom. My mom and I liked a bunch of movies together, but there were only a handful that me and my dad both really liked. Jaws was one. The original Dawn of the Dead was another. I know Uncle Bill has talked about having a really good rapport with his dad watching Dawn of the Dead. So I also share that. But I think it was the reverse. I think Uncle Bill's dad or Aaron's dad introduced him to Dawn of the Dead. I introduced my dad to Dawn of the Dead, so, as well as some other movies. But let's see. X-Ray, you say, hey, Daner. Hey, X-Ray. Did Everett McGill in the leather daddy outfit and people under the stairs give you the papers? Not really. Not really, X-Ray. I'm sorry. I can't tell you that. Yes, the 4K is great, Dirk. Yeah, I had to laugh at that too, Dirk. Oh my goodness. Okay. So, again, I'm not going to go into the entire plot of Jaws. Just to say that I do think Roy Scheider is great in this as the dad who really, I mean, he really cares about his sons. He really cares about his wife, but he also really cares about his community. And he's heartsick when people, especially a kid that gets killed early on in the ocean, and he works so hard to make the people that make the decisions in this town, the mayor and stuff, realize that you got to keep these people out of the water, or we're going to have a really big problem. The problem is, it's getting ready to be 4th of July weekend, and the leaders of this community don't want to lose money. It all goes back to politics and money, just like everything does. So, not only do you have Roy Scheider in a really great part, um, you also have Murray Hamilton, you have Robert Shaw, you have Richard Dreyfuss, which I like. I like the novel Jaws. It's been years since I actually read it, but I think Peter Benchley's novel is really good. But I like that one of the things I like about the movie is they didn't focus on marital problems between Brody and his wife. And I was glad that they didn't, because I think that would have made the plot way more complex than it needed to be for this type of movie. It's great for a novel, but in my opinion, not so great for a movie like this, where you're supposed to really be focusing on the shark and the havoc that it's causing in this small community, the small ocean community. Um, and actually, if I remember correctly, in the book, Brody's wife, because they're having so many problems, she ends up having an affair with the character played by Richard Dreyfuss in the movie version. And so I am just so glad that that did not even enter into the movie in any way, shape, or form, because I think it would have been detrimental to the movie to have that much drama unrelated to the shark to be in there. I think it just would have been too much. Actually, this movie is PG. It's not rated R, but it's still very, very effective. Um, and one of my great shames, I'll tell y'all this. I'll share this with y'all, and y'all probably find it highly amusing, considering the stuff I watch now and the stuff that I've watched over the past several years. But my mom tells me that when I was really little, I was scared of the shark in Jaws. Um, and that just blows my freaking mind when she told me that. So y'all can have a good laugh at my expense over that. Um, and something that's really bugging me, I didn't notice this before, but my case, and you guys probably can't see that on there because of the glare, but it looks like something sliced into my case a little bit. But the lenticular cover is still great. And also with this, you get a booklet as well. And I know you guys probably can't see that real good. I'll bring it down just a little bit so you can see it better. And you see the first victim of the shark, first victim of Jaws there. Now, you want to talk about a creepy scene. I will bring this up since I was showing the picture of that girl. I still find those beginning scenes of Jaws absolutely terrifying. I mean, I know that it's the shark that's doing it, but when that chick goes out in the water and she's just relaxing and swimming around and stuff, and the other guy is so drunk that he just basically passes out on the beach, never makes it to the water. And she's just relaxing, and all of a sudden, something starts pulling her down. And she kind of just goes, whoop, whoop, and it's like she's cold and scared and everything. She's, and then all of a sudden, whatever this is under the water, it is making her go in circles and zigzagging, and she's screaming and throwing her head back. I find that absolutely terrifying, because even though now we know that it's a shark, and I mean, you can tell from the cover that it's going to be about a shark. It even tells you. It even tells you in the plot synopsis, if you weren't sure by looking at the cover and all that. It says that Amity finds itself under attack by a dangerous great white shark. So, there's no denying what's causing the mayhem. But it's just that you cannot see the shark. You see the effects of what the shark is doing to this woman. And then later on in the movie, you see the after effects of the shark attack. And there's not much left of that poor girl at that point. Jay, you say everyone was afraid of the shark in Jaws in the 70s. Dana, were you safe from the shark on the couch? Yeah, I would assume that I would have been. I don't even remember being scared of Jaws, but my mom tells me I was when I was very small. So, go figure. Now I watch anything, but I just want to know, did the rest of you guys find that scene terrifying, or am I just totally out of left field with that? I just want to know what other people think of that. Um, um, Texas, although I don't think Lorraine Gary was a terrible actress, I don't think she was the best actress for this role. There seemed to be something kind of wooden about her performance, and I don't know. I can't really pinpoint it. I don't think she was terrible, but I think maybe with a little, I'm not saying Spielberg didn't give good direction, but maybe if an actor or actress really didn't need to go out on their own, that they need to be guided more, or perhaps Spielberg couldn't do that, maybe. And maybe that's what Lorraine Gary needed. I'm not sure. um, Dirk, you say you didn't want to go swimming after? Yeah, it scared a lot of people, just like Psycho scared people away from showers. Um, Texas, you say, hell yeah, I was 10 years old. Um, Jay, you say it's scary. Uh, Texas, you say she's the absolute shits in Jaws 3. I just think her performances actually got worse with each successive film. So by the fourth one, where she was having the romance with Michael Caine's character, it was just totally off the rails. Um, but so, Dirk, you didn't want to go swimming in a lake or a pool. Well, I mean, when we're kids, it's kind of hard for us to separate the fact that, like, the shark's in an ocean. He's not in a lake. He's not in a pool. But our child mind doesn't think that way. It thinks water, great white shark. If I go in the water, I'm going to get eaten. So, I totally understand that. Um, John, you say I was scared in swimming pools as a kid, even because of a James Bond film where the shark comes through the pool light. Yeah, exactly. So I'll talk a little bit about the special features on Jaws. Um, this, again, is the 4K. So you get the making of Jaws, you get the shark is still working, the impact and legacy of Jaws, Jaws the restoration, deleted scenes and outtakes from the set, storyboards, production photos, marketing Jaws, Jaws phenomenon, and the original theatrical trailer. So, and you actually, with this one, you get both the 4K and the Blu-ray. And I'll show you the little booklet that comes with it. I didn't really show you some of the pictures that are inside of it, but you see there Bruce the shark, and show you maybe a couple others that's kind of behind the scenes stuff. There you can see them filming the mechanical shark. I think I probably showed you that one already, didn't I? Yeah, there you go. Jay, you say, no, Danny, you don't know if there's a monster freshwater mutant shark in the lake. Yeah. I mean, you're just so, or I was so into that scene that when that, I mean, I knew she was going to be attacked, but it's just like, I don't know. I really don't know how to describe it other than, again, to say that that was an utterly terrifying scene for me. Um, and I can't pinpoint just one thing other than the fact that you saw what the shark was doing to her. He was manipulating her all over the place and then eventually kills her. But you don't see the damn shark then. So I think that just makes it scarier. So moving right along is the first movie that Joe Bob showed on this past Friday's last drive-in episode. And for those of you that watched it, you will know what one I'm going to talk about. And that is The Stepfather, starring Terry O'Quinn. This is the original Stepfather, not that awful, in my opinion, remake. As I said earlier, when I was doing the show that'll be out sometime later with Steve and Darren this morning, we were talking about the stuff that we watched, and I brought up the fact that I had watched The Stepfather on Joe Bob's show. But this story is loosely based on John List. Now, John List was a man who murdered his entire family, including his mother, his elderly mother, who lived in the upstairs. She had like a whole upstairs area to herself, basically. But anyway, he killed his entire family and went on the run for 18 years. He was able to evade capture for 18 years. He changed his appearance, changed his name, went to another totally different location. I wanted to say maybe Colorado, but I could be wrong on that. I think before that he lived in New Jersey. There is a book about this called Righteous Carnage, if you're interested in trying to find that book to read up on John List. There's also information online. Just go to Google and punch in John List and you will be able to get that stuff. But basically, what America's Most Wanted helped to capture John List, because what they did on that episode was they showed an age progression of what John List would probably look like after 18 years. So the neighbor of John List, only he was going by a different name, they were shocked to realize that this age progression looked very similar to her neighbor. So they called into the show. It turns out that was John List, and they were able to capture him and take him into custody. And he actually denied for a while that he was John List, and then he finally admitted to it, and he ended up dying in prison, of course. But amazingly enough, he was able to escape capture for 18 years after the horrific murder of his family. And what happened to John List is, I think this would probably be an example of mental illness caused by, more than likely, his strict upbringing by his mother, who was like really like, she was probably in the throes of religious mania. I actually watched the movie version, the John List story, and it shows a scene where she is basically scalding him and scrubbing him with a, looks like a wire brush, and she had to be making his skin come off because he was a dirty, evil little boy, and she was going to scrub the evil out of him. So he grew up wanting to have the perfect family. And as we all know, nobody has the perfect family. There is always going to be some sort of friction in the family at some points. Everybody's not going to get along 100% of the time. Everything is not going to go hunky-dory 100% of the time. But in his delusional mind, John List, in the same way Terry O'Quinn's character of Jerry Blake in The Stepfather, wants to have a perfect family. He wants to have that Leave It to Beaver family, Father Knows Best family, or whatever. He wanted that sitcom, that wholesome sitcom family where everything was perfect. But in a person's mind that has not been warped, like John List's mind evidently was, you would realize that your family is not going to be like Leave It to Beaver. Those are not real families. Those are TV families. So this movie is loosely based on John List. Joe Bob did bring that up during the show in case you guys watch that later. This movie's not really long. It's just under 90 minutes at 89 minutes. So Terry O'Quinn is excellent in this. I've seen Terry O'Quinn. Terry O'Quinn is another one of these versatile actors who can play really bad characters and really good characters and really sympathetic characters and all of that. And there are some looks he gives in this movie that give me cold chills all up and down my spine. Because he's that good of an actor. It's not that he's really an evil guy. It's just that he's that good of an actor, and he basically blew people away at the audition for this part. So just to give a little plot synopsis on this, in case there are some of you watching this that have not seen it. Jerry Blake, played by Terry O'Quinn, is a man obsessed with having the perfect American dream life, including the house with the white picket fence in the suburbs, an adoring wife and loving children. He believes he's found it when he marries Susan Main and becomes the stepfather to Susan's 16-year-old daughter, Stephanie. But Stephanie, played by Jill Schoelen, gets an uneasy feeling when she is around Jerry with his father knows best attitude. She can see that there's a darker side behind his cheerful exterior. Could she just be going through the typical teenage rebellion against her new stepfather? Or is he actually the same man who brutally murdered his family just 1 year earlier? Now, a similar storyline was used in a movie called I want to say too scared to scream or something like that. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on this. Joe Bob also brought this up on his show, and I have seen that movie with Steve as well. I think Steve may own the movie, either that or we watched a download of it. But in any event, I find that movie far inferior when compared with The Stepfather. For one thing, the girl is seems younger, and I believe is younger than Jill Shelton's character in The Stepfather, and she's really crass and has sex with the neighborhood boy, and she doesn't even look old enough to be having sex, and the language is a little rough to be, I'm not trying to sound prudish. I'm just saying that movie on so many levels did not work for me in the same way that The Stepfather worked for me. I think The Stepfather, compare the two movies compared side by side, The Stepfather is the far superior film. Let's see. Oh, Dirk, I'm just now seeing your other comment about Jaws. You say, yeah, and the fact that I would have the Jaws theme in my head is approaching any body of water. LOL. Exactly. And that's a piece of music that as soon as it starts, you know what it's from. Darren, you say you didn't even know this one was a true story. Yeah, I mean, I say loosely based because everything, how these things are, everything's not going to be exactly the same as the John List's, life and everything. But that's where the kernel of the idea came from, was the John List murders. Casey, you say, I thought it was hilarious when Joe Bob said that John List would wear a suit and tie when he mowed the lawn. Exactly. And I think if you read the book Righteous Carnage, I think it even talks about that he literally would wear a suit and tie when he mowed the lawn, which is just very bizarre. John, you said the remake for this is okay. I saw it once. Yeah, I saw it once, and that's all I needed to see it. I mean, if somebody likes it or you think it's okay, I mean, that's perfectly fine. I just, my mom likes it. My mom likes it real well. She probably likes it as well as the original Stepfather. And I remember the first time we rented The Stepfather, and me and my mom and stuff watching it, and her really liking it. Excuse me. But she also liked the remake, and I was like, it's not for me. But this has always been, this movie came out in 1987. This has always been one of my favorite horror movies. I will say, how Texas brought up that he thought Lorraine Gary was terrible in Jaws. Well, unfortunately, I think Shelley Hack is pretty terrible in this movie. And it's a good thing that she was not carrying the film, because I don't think it would have, done nearly as well. But with Terry O'Quinn in the lead character, in my opinion, and Jill Schoen being perfectly cast, in my opinion, as the stepdaughter, Stephanie. But Shelley Hack just comes across as a total airhead in this movie. Really a dim bulb. And she was the only one that I actually did not feel fit in the movie or fit in with the other characters, the other actors. But you guys can feel free to put in the chat what you think about that. Um, Dirk, you said, yeah, the remake, I didn't even bother. Yeah, I don't envision myself seeing it again. Um, Now this is actually not a Scream Factory. This is one of the early ones, so this has the Shout Factory label on it. Um, it has a few special features. It has audio commentary with director Joe Rubin or Joseph Rubin. And I can't really recall if I've listened to that commentary. I probably have, but I can't remember a lot about it. The Stepfather Chronicles all new interviews with cast and crew. Now, this is something I want to bring up, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Terry O'Quinn is so awesome in this movie and so perfectly cast and everything that I just wonder if he's not ashamed of this movie or ashamed of both this one and the second one, which he was also in. That he doesn't. I mean, because he's never done an interview that I know of about this movie. He's never done a commentary that I know of for this movie or the second movie. So I would love to hear what his thoughts are on it and what he thinks of his performance and what does he think of the movie as a whole. But I don't know that we're ever going to get that. Um, Darren, you say part two was pretty good. I remember I had part three on VHS, but not seen it. Part three to me is basically a throwaway film. It has the girl, the actress who played Terry on later episodes of Three's Company. If that gives you any indication of how bad the movie is, and I'm not saying she was bad on later episodes of Three's Company. I'm just saying it just that movie did not work for me. They actually had somebody totally different. The For those of you that remember the Waltons television show, um, when now Richard Thomas originally played John Boy Walton, but there was a space of time, and I'm not like the hugest fan girl of the Waltons. My mom used to watch it a lot, and that I would catch episodes here and there. Um, but Richard Thomas was great as John Boy Walton. I was always interested in his character more than I was the other characters because he was the writer in the family, and I've always been interested in writing. So that aspect fascinated me, and I thought Richard Thomas was great as John Boy Walton. But there was a space of time where John Boy had to go to war and he was missing in action for a while, I think. And when his character came back on the show, it was a different John Boy. And that is the guy that they used to play the stepfather in part three. So yeah, that one I could probably watch the first two and forget that the third one even existed, to be honest. Um, see. Darren, you say, I've heard bad things on part three. That's why I haven't rushed to see it. Yeah, I mean, it might be okay for a one time watch, but I don't think you're going to be like, wow, this is a great film. I'm going to go back and watch it, a week later or whatever. Um, I mean, it'd probably be worth watching one time, but I don't. It's just not a really good film, in my opinion. Oh, boy. But anyway, this is The Stepfather. I highly, highly recommend it. If you've never seen it, try to get your hands on a copy or, watch it on Shudder because Shudder has the license to it now. Um, if you go back, if you missed Joe Bob's show and you go back and watch it later, yeah, definitely do that. Or if it's been a while, like I say with a lot of these movies, if it's been a while since you've seen it, pull that sucker back out or, find a copy of it and watch it. Uh, but anyway, moving right along, we've got three more to go. and then I will be done for the night. um, but the next one is another Stephen King one. I actually have one, two, three Stephen King related films in this bunch. Um, Dark, you say I remember seeing Stepfather around the same time as Blackout. It's one I recommend. Yeah, I think I may have seen Blackout, but if not, I need to see it. But the next one I want to talk about is The Shining. This again is a 4K of The Shining. The Shining is another one. I don't think I need to go into deep into the plot. If I do, somebody holler out at me in the chat, and I'll be glad to cover it. But I really don't want to bore you with a plot that you already know. But although this version of The Shining, directed by Stanley Kubrick, does not follow Stephen King's book very closely, um, it's kind of its own beast, its own animal. And that's probably why Stephen King, this is the only adaptation of his work that I've ever heard him actively say he does not like. And that might be, or probably is because I think there are a lot of personal aspects to Stephen King's life that's in the book The Shining. Stephen King was alcoholic at one time. Stephen King did some hard drugs at one time. I mean, he's clean now. He's been clean for years, but um, when something is that close to you, when you have that much of your personal self in something, and then somebody, kind of turns stuff upside down and doesn't really put what you would have put out there, which Stephen King did have his chance to kind of redeem the story the way he wanted when he did the miniseries, where Steven Weber played Jack Torrance. Um, but with that being said, I do think The Shining is a great horror movie, even though it doesn't follow Stephen King's book very well at all. This is, instead of Stephen King's The Shining, this is exactly what it says up there. Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, and I know that's really light and you can't see it. So, if you want Stephen King's The Shining, you're going to have to either read the book and or watch the miniseries that was done. But I'll tell you, the kid that played Danny Torrance in the miniseries was super duper annoying, and I really like I really like the little boy that plays Danny in this version a lot better. And I've actually met him, the grown up Danny. Um, and he was a really, really cool guy. I think he's a teacher now, but he's one of those people that really doesn't want you to know where he teaches at, which I totally respect that. And I didn't ask him what school he taught at or anything. So, um, and he signed my little Funko Pop of Danny. Um, and so I was really thrilled about that. Um, but I also think that although Stephen King and a lot of other people think Jack Nicholson um, was sadly miscast as Jack Torrance, I think for Kubrick's version, his vision, I think Jack Nicholson works great for it. I think this movie works as a horror film. Um, I've loved it since the first time I watched it. I I try to not even compare it that much with the novel, and kind of keep the two separate. Um, But that's just how I deal with it. Now, other people may be like Stephen King. They may totally hate it and refuse to watch it. Um, Other people might be like me and think of them as two separate entities, the book and Kubrick's movie. Um, I just enjoy it for what it is, um, and would highly recommend it. Um, because there are some generally scary moments in this. There's some feeling of dread in this. And you know from the first moment, and see, Stephen King had the problem with that. He says when you see, first time you see Jack Torrance, you know the guy's crazy. I don't know if I would go that far, but there's something not quite right about Jack Torrance and Jack Nicholson's portrayal of Jack Torrance. And there's a little more work than just alcoholism. Um, there's some mental instability there, definitely, which that and the alcohol abuse all comes into play and culminates into one of the greatest, in my opinion, endings in a horror movie ever. Um, so anyway, I'll talk a little bit about the special features on this 4K, but I think the special features are actually on the Blu-ray. So, oh goodness. You get commentary by Steadicam inventor and operator Garrett Brown and historian John Baker. Well, actually, that is on the 4K and the Blu-ray. You get Vivian Kubrick's documentary, The Making of The Shining, with optional commentary, which I highly recommend that. You get 3 mesmerizing featurettes, View from the Overlook, Crafting the Shining, The Visions of Stanley Kubrick, and Wendy Carlos, composer. So, let me look at what you guys have put here. Because I'm trying not to miss anybody's comments. Darky said the greatest movie of all time. Darren, you said The Shining is a masterpiece in my top 10 films of all time. I still can't bring myself to see Dr. Sleep. Well, you know, Darren, I was a little hesitant to even read the novel. And I don't really know why, other than I guess I thought it might change my thoughts on the original novel, The Shining, and the fact that really Stephen King has never done a sequel to one of his own novels. But the novel was so good, Dr. Sleep was so good, and really, in my opinion, one of Stephen King's best books, like best later books especially. That I couldn't help myself. I had to see Dr. Sleep when the movie version came out. And I will recommend it. But keep in mind that it's a little bit confusing to me because the movie seems to directly mirror Kubrick's The Shining, rather than following Stephen King's book as closely, the Dr. Sleep book. And that may have been by design because The Shining, Kubrick's The Shining, was so different in a lot of ways than the novel The Shining, that maybe, you know, and Stephen King, I've heard, really liked Dr. Sleep, the movie version of Dr. Sleep. So he evidently didn't have any problems with it. And perhaps Stephen King has mellowed over the years as well. Durkee said Kubrick made it better in my opinion. Kubrick bought the rights and told King, "This is my vehicle. That's why you see the red car smashed, and the Torrance family are in a yellow car." That, see, I hadn't heard that particular story, but that is an interesting story, Dirk. Um, Darren, you say the Shining miniseries is where I tapped out, and having Jack's wife as soon as some kind of sex kitten, LOL, blows my mind. Well, actually, um, I'm not saying that the character of Wendy in the book was a sex kitten, but she was described as a very attractive blonde. And I'm not making fun of Shelley Duvall at all, but she's far from being a blonde. I'll say that. And when compared with not necessarily uh, Wendy in the miniseries, uh, but Wendy in the novel, um, she just seems like a totally different character, totally different animal. It's like and evidently, uh, and you will see this in Vivian Kubrick's documentary, um, that there were evidently Shelley Duvall was in bad health at the time. I don't know what was going on with her, but she was in a lot of pain and stuff, and they were kind of having to, uh, get her warm, pack her with blankets and things like that. And that's probably why she's, Shelley Duvall's not an ugly woman. And I wouldn't even call her unattractive. I'm just saying, probably her health issues at the time probably made her look less than, glamorous anyway. Um, so, and then poor Shelley Duvall, the problems that she's had in recent years, and um, I don't know how many of you guys saw the Dr. Phil expose where he. That's the thing that bugs me about Dr. Phil. He tends to exploit people, I think, and I thought that he exploited Shelley Duvall. Shelley Duvall doesn't even look like the same woman anymore. She's quite a bit heavier now, older, obviously, um, but she really doesn't look like the same Shelley Duvall at all. Um, and she also thinks that there's some kind of stuff in her brain that's making her body not move right and her not function well. And I think she thinks something's been implanted in her brain. She's obviously in the throes of some kind of mental disorder. And instead of helping her, I felt like Dr. Phil was exploiting her. But that's another sad story, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, I can see though where you putting Rebecca De Mornay in that character when we all know what kind of sex kitten probably is the right term, because anybody that's seen Rebecca De Mornay in Risky Business, sex kitten is exactly what you would think when you see that. And it's hard to get those images of her and Tom Cruise out of your mind to long enough to accept her as a mother, a loving mother and wife, instead of this prostitute that's screwing Tom Cruise. But anyway, um, John, you said The Shining is amazing, but I can't rewatch it a lot. It's a heavy watch. Yeah. Um, Generally, I don't tend to watch it that much, or in too close, watch it and then like the next week watch it again. I don't like to do that. And it usually is a wintertime watch. Me and Steve like to watch certain movies in the winter, and The Shining is one of those for obvious reasons. Um, Darky said there's so many layers to The Shining. You could see it as a ghost story or just a crazy ass alcoholic father, or maybe Wendy is nuts, lol. Plus the fact that Danny has The Shining, these psychic powers, and he can see stuff that's happened. The ghosts can get a hold of him a lot easier than they could a person without these abilities. And so his power of The Shining kind of brings these ghosts out more and puts the family in real danger. But he's on the other side of the coin, he's just a little boy, and he hasn't learned to control his abilities yet. So it's not his fault. Dargy said Kubrick also had the axe versus a croquet mallet, which was King thinking. Yeah. Or what the hell was King thinking? Um, well, again, the croquet mallet was, to me, in the book, the croquet mallet was effective. But in a movie version, I feel like you need a little more oomph to it. And Jack Nicholson running around with an axe was a lot more frightening than Jack Nicholson running around with a croquet mallet. Um, but you only have the visuals in your head whenever you're reading a book, and I think that's why the croquet mallet was effective in the novel, whereas it might not have been quite as effective in Kubrick's version. Because, like I said, Kubrick had a whole different vision for this. He wanted this to be his movie. Um, I think he almost wanted it to be separate from Stephen King's novel. Darren, you say watching Shining is an experience. If you look into the film deeply, there's a lot of child abuse going on as well. Exactly. Durkee say he did the sequel to the novel because of Kubrick's vision. He was butthurt, really. Well, I'm not going to say anything bad about my favorite writer of all time, Dirk, but I could definitely see that. Um, Durkee said Kubrick chose Duvall because he felt her look made it more frightening. Yeah, there's one scene in Kubrick's The Shining that is an iconic scene and has been used in many books, still photos and books. And that is when the axe is coming through the bathroom door. And the horrified look on Shelley Duvall's face where she's just, like that. They have a freeze frame of that in a lot of books on horror movies that I've looked at. And I can totally understand that. I really can. But I'm not going to go on too much longer about The Shining. Y'all feel free to keep chatting about it in there, and I am glancing at the chat as I'm going through these last two. But I started this thing at 8 o'clock. It's now after 10, so I kind of, once again, y'all are going to think I'm the biggest liar ever. But once again, I didn't intend to go on this long with it, and I do need to, like, even though I'm not working tomorrow, I do need to get some rest, and you guys need to get some rest. I'm sure some of you are going to work tomorrow, so I will try to make it quick with these last two. The next one is another Stephen King based movie. This is another 4K, and it's Pet Sematary. This is a movie that I honestly find very hard to watch. And there, and it's for, it used to be the whole Zelda thing. But now, as I've gotten older, and even though I don't have kids myself, I have fur babies, but I have no human children. Darky say, yeah, there's a lot to The Shining. I can talk about it for days. My bad, LOL. No, that's cool. You can keep chatting in there all you want about it. I don't mind at all. Um, but now, like I said, now that I've gotten older, and actually I'm past my childbearing years, but the the part about the death of a child is just heart wrenching. Very, very difficult to watch, even though you know that little boy did not really die, um, and he's still alive and well. Miko Hughes is fine. If you watch the uh, Unearthed and Untold, The Path to Pet Cemetery, which is an excellent documentary, I can't recommend it enough. If you haven't seen it, you need to seek that one out and watch it. Um, but that is, I think the death of a child within this film is the most disturbing thing about it for me now. Now, when I was a kid, when this first came out in 1989, um, the disturbing thing was damn Zelda. And it was even disturbing in the book back when I read Pet Cemetery, the novel. It was disturbing then, too. But when the movie came out, they chose to have a guy play Zelda, a very slender guy to play Zelda. And that dude, I mean, and that dude looks perfectly normal. I saw interviews with him in Unearthed and Untold, The Path to Pet Cemetery, and he's normal. He looks normal. He acts normal. But he really had that character of Zelda down pat. I've said this before, but I wanted to bring it up again and see what you guys um, think. But um, the uh, the illness that is affecting Zelda, who is Rachel's sister. Rachel is the main character, the wife of Lewis Creed, uh, played by Dale Midkiff. Um, but she evidently, Zelda had spinal meningitis. And I know that spinal meningitis can cause, horrible, I guess, deformities to your spine, can cause you not to be able to walk and things like that. But I was not under the impression that it affected your brain, that it would make you insane. And there's a whole scene in the movie where Rachel is really upset talking about her sister dying and what they all went through, or mainly what she went through before her sister died, having to take care of her sister. And Lewis says, your parents should have never left you at home with your dying sister, a sister that was probably clinically insane by then. So I didn't really understand that. Maybe I need to read more on spinal meningitis. Maybe you guys could shed some light on that. Maybe there's something that I just don't know. But I did not know that meningitis, maybe in the old days, meningitis would cause issues with the brain. I know tuberculosis could, but I didn't know that for a long time until I went to Waverly Hills, um, the old tuberculosis hospital that is supposed to be haunted. And, this is another story for another day, but I did see things both times when I was at Waverly Hills. But they told us that, our guide told us that basically some people that had TB, not all, but some, it affected their brain, and these people became violent. And they had to put them on a special floor. Um, away from the other patients. So I guess it is entirely possible that something like spinal meningitis could cause insanity or mental illness as well. But every scene with Zelda was just freaked me the hell out. Um, and still to this day, I'm not terrified. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it or anything. But any of the scenes with Zelda just kind of sends a shiver through me, just because the guy that played Zelda, he really had that whole thing down pat. And that was even creepy in the novel, because your mind can conjure up all kinds of imagery when you're dealing with a writer of the caliber of Stephen King, um, whose characters are so well written anyway. Um, Yeah, Darren, I would definitely listen if you and Dirk did a podcast on The Shining. That would be awesome. Uh, and Dirk, you say Zelda is probably the creepiest part of the film. Yeah, I would have to say, out of all the many creepy scenes I've seen in horror films over time, it definitely tops my list of the creepiest ones. So. Um, But I've heard a lot of people say that they didn't think that the original Pet Cemetery was well cast. They thought it was poorly cast. A lot of people didn't like who were chosen for the main characters. They didn't like Dale Midkiff as Lewis Creed, and I think Dale Midkiff does a very good job in this, an excellent job. Um, Denise Crosby, people didn't like Denise Crosby playing Rachel Creed. Um, I don't, I just don't agree with that. I mean, some of her performances might have been a little lackluster in the movie, but overall, I think she did an excellent job. Um, and speaking of Herman Munster, um, we have none other than Herman Munster himself playing the next door neighbor, Judd Crandall. So I think it's a really well rounded cast. I think everybody is able to work off the other person. And yeah, Dirk, Pet Cemetery is damn near a perfect film. That is, I feel that way too. I did not like the remake. I actually watched it. It just did not work for me. I'm not saying it was an awful film. It just, personally, it did not work for me. Um, and I don't envision myself ever watching the remake again. The remake pissed you off, Dirk? Yeah, I mean, I could see that because um, they it was another movie like y'all are probably so sick of hearing me talk and gripe about the Evil Dead remake. But to me it's almost the same, not quite that bad, but it's almost like they tried to make a totally different film than what it was and put things in there that they shouldn't have and take out things that they shouldn't have. And again, I'm not saying it should have been a shot for shot remake. That would just be boring. But for heaven's sake, don't mess with the things that worked in the original film or even things that worked in the novel if it was a novel first. So, uh, Darren, you said after seeing the trailer, I didn't even bother with the remake. Yeah, I mean, it was, I think at the time I watched it, it was free on Prime. So it's not like I bought it or anything and wasted any money. I just wanted to see, because it seemed like there were two schools of thought on it. Some people really, really liked it, and others really, really hated it. And I just wanted to see for myself which camp I fell into. And I guess it's not all out hate. With this one, it's just disappointment. Um, And again, I don't envision myself ever going back and rewatching it again. Um, but again, I don't see myself going through the entire plot of Pet Cemetery because I think you guys in here know the plot of it, or the basic plot. But this is, like I said, this is the 4K of it. It's the 30th anniversary version of it as well. So the special features you get Fear and Remembrance, a look back at this classic with the cast and crew of 2019's Pet Cemetery, which I find totally annoying that they would put that as a special feature on the original Pet Cemetery. I don't know what that has to do with anything. Revisitation, new interview with Mary Lambert. Director Mary Lambert shares memories of the movie. 3 new behind the scenes image galleries, including never before seen storyboards. Disc 2, which is the Blu ray, so you get a 4K and a Blu ray. You get new and original special features, Stephen King territory, the characters, and filming the horror. And that is Pet Cemetery. And if you hadn't guessed, the reason why I included that in the Father's Day special live stream is because I think that Dale Midkiff does an excellent job of playing Lewis Creed. A very, in my opinion, sympathetic father figure. Some people I had heard referred to him as not a smart character. Forrest Gump's coming to me. I'm not a smart man when I was saying that. But anyway, they said that they basically indicated that Dale Midkiff's character of Lewis Creed was not smart, that he made a lot of mistakes. But I look at it this way. What father would not want to bring their child back, no matter how the child died? This kind of goes back to the monkey's paw story, or oh gosh, I'm totally forgetting. Deathstream. The Deathstream movie, which follows, the monkey's paw story pretty closely. Only you don't have a monkey's paw in there that I recall. It's just basically a wish to have their son back who got killed in the war. But maybe there was a monkey's paw or some old trinket or something. But this kind of the same storyline follows with Pet Cemetery. And I hear people setting off fireworks. It's going to get worse. And then they'll be like months after 4th of July is over, they'll still be setting them off. But it's very annoying when they do that, and it upsets my dogs if they're very loud. But anyways, back to the movie at hand. I'm just thinking, what parents are not going to think rationally when their child is dead. No matter if they get hit like poor Gage by a car or truck and die, or they die of leukemia, or they die, there's some kind of other accident that causes the death of the child. The parents are going to go crazy with grief. And so I think that what Lewis Creed does in this movie is totally acceptable and on the level. Not that I'm not saying that every parent that's lost a child is going to go dig their child up and try to bury them in a Indian burial ground to bring them back to life. I'm not saying that. But anybody that's lost anyone, not just children, but someone they loved, and even pets that they loved, Um, if they thought that they could bring somebody back or a pet, beloved pet back, I could almost guarantee they would do the same thing that Louis Creed does. No matter how insane it may sound, you're racked with grief. Uh, and if somebody told you you had the opportunity to bring that loved one back, I think any of us would want to go that route. And then, of course, you have severe consequences within the movie to what Louis Creed does and the decisions he makes. But I don't think that makes him a stupid man. I think that makes him a grief stricken man who will do anything to get his son back. Uh, but let's see. Texas, you say, I thought the remake was okay until the ending. I just, that's, I think that's great, Texas, that you found a lot to like in the remake. Um, I just found so many things personally for me that were wrong with that movie. It just didn't gel for me. But I'm glad that some people did like it, though. You say Death Dream is a great movie. I agree. I haven't watched it actually for a while, but I need to go back and watch it. Dirk, you say exactly, Texas. The boy was alive, and what next? Are all going to be an undead family? LOL. And Dirk, you say Death Dream is great as well. Yeah. Texas, you said that was definitely stupid. I was like, what the fuck? So, now on to the last one we're going to cover because it's almost 10:30, and I'm betting you guys are getting probably pretty sleepy. Is another one that you guys may think that this is an odd choice for me to pick. But again, I saw it on more than one list when I was looking at horror movies for Father's Day or to watch on Father's Day, and saw it. Yeah, like I said, I saw it on more than one list. I don't think I saw it listed in the video that I watched, but that is A Nightmare on Elm Street, the original Nightmare on Elm Street, not the remake. And no, I'm not talking about Freddy Krueger. Who I am referring to is John Saxon in the character of Lieutenant Thompson, Nancy Thompson's father. Because what I see in that character is a man who wants to do right by his family, even though he's divorced from his wife. He still wants to do right by her. And I think he still cares about her, even though they're divorced. And he definitely wants to do right by his daughter and wants to protect his daughter. They kind of overshadow that by the third Nightmare on Elm Street when Lieutenant Thompson comes back into his daughter's life. And he seems to be sort of just a lush, but I felt like in the original Nightmare on Elm Street that John Saxon's character really cared about his family. Whether he was married to the woman that was once his wife or not, I think he still cared about her well-being, didn't want to see her drink her life away. And he didn't want any harm to come to his daughter. And I think that protective vibe that he had going on, in many ways, it carried over to the other children in his, or other kids in his daughter's life. Her boyfriend, played by Johnny Depp, her 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 best friend, and her best friend's on again, off again boyfriend, Rod Lane. And oh, and her best friend's name was Tina Gray, actually, which is I always found it's always been amusing to me because I went to school with a girl named Tina Gray. And she was my best friend in school, or at least through middle school and high school, anyway. Um, and This is also directed by the late great Wes Craven. Um, Stars Heather Langenkamp in the character of Nancy. Um, and Ronnie Blakely, who plays her mother, does an excellent job too, even though some people may consider Ronnie Blakely a little kooky. And I think she was a kind of, I don't want to say oddball, but when they talk behind the scenes about Ronnie Blakely, they talk like she was somebody that would, color her hair weird colors and wear makeup a little differently than other women will wear makeup and stuff like that. So, um, I guess she was just unique. Um, and also, of course, Robert Englund playing Freddy Krueger, the horrifically burned uh, pedophile and child murderer who comes back to haunt the kids of Elm Street's dreams because their parents burned him up years ago. But yeah, I mean, again, I'm not going to go into a detailed plot synopsis of Nightmare on Elm Street. I think all you guys pretty much know the story of A Nightmare on Elm Street. And this has been called, the movie guide called this one of the most intelligent and terrifying horror films of the 80s. I really like it. I think Wes Craven really did a great job with it. I think this was my introduction to Wes Craven. I didn't see things like Hills Have Eyes and stuff like that until later. So this was probably my introduction to the work of Wes Craven. I had not seen Last House on the Left at this point or anything like that. So, I almost say I was too young for Last House on the Left, but yet I was watching Nightmare on Elm Street, so go figure. Um, let's see. Durkee say, you've got the quotes from the Ramones song, I don't want to be buried in Pet Cemetery, I don't want to have to live my life again, which is a great song. And of course, had to have been created for that movie. Texas, you said that's a John motherfucking Saxon. Exactly. Who sadly, John Saxon's no longer with us as well. I wish I had gotten to meet John Saxon, just like I wish I had gotten to meet Wes Craven, but evidently that was not to be. But anyway, I'll talk a little bit about the special features on this. This is actually the New Line Cinema Blu-ray that came out. I'm eagerly awaiting some 4Ks of these movies, but you get Ready Freddy focus points, see alternate takes, and learn filmmaking secrets behind the nightmare by jumping to video highlights while watching the movie. 2 commentaries, one with director Wes Craven, co-stars Heather Langenkamp and John Saxon, and cinematographer Jacques Haitkin, which is a really good commentary. You get a second commentary with Wes Craven, co-stars Robert Englund, Heather Langenkamp, and Ronnie Blakely, producer Robert Shea, and co-producer Sarah Risher, which is also good. Alternate endings. 3 featurettes, The House That Freddy Built, The Legacy of New Line Horror, Never Sleep Again, The Making of a Nightmare on Elm Street, Night Terrors, The Origins of Wes Craven's Nightmares, and an interactive trivia track. So, again, that is Nightmare on Elm Street. Highly recommend it. If you've never seen it, run, don't walk, and get this movie and watch it. Forget about that terrible remake. And if it's been a while since you watch it, I highly recommend pulling this sucker back out again and watching it again. One of my top horror films for sure. Um, Darren, you say, over the years, Nightmare Part 2 has become my favorite of the series. Like the first 8 Friday films, the first 4 Nightmare films is where it's at. Yeah, yeah, you're right on target with that one, Darren, with that statement. I totally agree with that. But now I've reached the end of the movies that I wanted to discuss tonight. I'm sorry if I didn't cover some of your favorite movies with some of your favorite dads in there. I didn't want to cover too awfully many because look how long I went on with just what we got here 7 movies. And I did spend quite a bit of time talking about frailty, like I said, because I don't think I've ever covered that in any of my live streams. Um, yeah, Dirk, honorable mentions could be Amityville Horror, Burnt Offerings, and The Changeling. Exactly. Yeah, I had forgotten about The Changeling, and I really like that film, and that one has a lot of creepy moments in it. Yeah, I agree with Darren. Good choices. I almost included the original Amityville Horror in this because that was another one that was on a lot of people's list. But then I thought, well, I might be, going overboard if I, keep pulling out every one that I think of that's got either really good dads, really evil dads, or something else that made them unique. Uh, I didn't talk about the Shaggy Dog. Yeah, maybe that's another movie for another day, Texas. Um, but I guess I may give it a minute more. I've been on here over 2.5 hours. Um, see if anybody has any last thoughts or wants to tell me this live stream sucked or whatever. And I'm sorry that I wasn't 100% well while doing this, because if I was, I probably could have went on longer. But I'm starting to feel the lingering effects of this illness again. Uh, oh, I agree. There is or are you just talking about the pics that I have? But there are, there's a lot more out there that I could have covered. Um, and I'm sorry that I'm not exactly on the top of my game and feeling well enough to cover a lot more. I would love to. I just, at this point in time, just can't do it. Um, well, thank you, Darren. I'm glad you appreciate it and had fun in here as I did. Texas, you say it is a possession film in a way. Yeah, I agree with that too. Um, Thank you, Texas, for saying I had great picks. Uh, oh, Wes, were you in here watching, or did you just come in here to tail end? You're telling me to take a big swig of liquor. You know, I would, but I'm probably going to take my off-brand NyQuil here in a little bit, and I don't think NyQuil and alcohol will mix very good, so it's going to have to be one or the other, and I'm going to need something to cut the fever out, as well as taking care of my aches and stuff like that. So I'm probably going to have to go with the off-brand NyQuil. Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry that you didn't get to hear more of it, but of course this recording will be up on YouTube, so you can always go back and watch it. Yeah, it probably would take years the way I blab on about stuff. But uh, I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me for a little bit. Well, not for a little bit, actually, over 2.5 hours. And yeah, I thank y'all for stopping by and hanging out. I like all the comments. I like the discussion. I think we had a very good discussion. I don't know when exactly I'm going to be doing another one of these. Um, Hopefully sooner rather than later. I know I always say that, but I'm kind of starting to do more again as far as these live streams. So hopefully I can do one here real soon for you. NyQuil and alcohol mix great. Not in my body, they don't, unfortunately. So I'm going to call it a night, guys. Thanks again for stopping by. I'll see y'all on the flip side, and I'm going to skedaddle on out of here. So good night, everybody, and you fathers, and that includes a lot of people. Fathers of human kids and fathers of fur babies. I consider you fathers too. So happy Father's Day to all you guys. Um, oh, and Wes would like everybody to know, tune in Monday night Jaws tomorrow. Uncle Bill and Rambo Raft 4 Life Talk Jaws 3. Yeah, definitely check that out. Um, you have a great night too, Texas. Goodbye for now, guys. See y'all soon. Thank you, Dirk. I'm too hard on myself. Yeah, well, I have no self confidence at all. I've said that before. But y'all have a good night. I'll see you soon, hopefully.